Welcome to Sara Gonzales Unfiltered. So yesterday we talked about this activist judge who ordered President Trump to, he's like, don't stop deporting Venezuelan gang members, these very vicious and violent gang members who are here illegally. Stop doing that. We want them back here in this country. And of course, President Trump, we know how this story ended. President Trump was like, actually, they're in international airspace now. Can't do anything about it. But yesterday, you had Representative Brandon Gill, my personal congressman, who vowed to introduce articles of impeachment against this activist Obama-appointed judge by the name of James Boasberg. And today, the congressman followed through on that promise. He did, in fact, file articles of impeachment against this judge who ordered President Trump to stop the Tren de Aragua deportation flights. Now, of course, Representative Gill accused the judge on X of being guilty of high crimes and misdemeanors and said that he should be removed from office. Now, this came after President Trump posted on Truth Social yesterday of the matter. This radical left lunatic of a judge, a troublemaker and agitator who was sadly appointed by Barack Hussein Obama, was not elected president. He didn't win the popular vote by a lot. He didn't win all 7 swing states. He didn't win 2,750 to 525 counties. He didn't win anything. I won for many reasons in an overwhelming mandate, but fighting illegal immigration may have been the number one reason for this historic victory. I'm just doing what the voters wanted me to do. This judge, like many of the crooked judges I'm forced to appear before, should be impeached. We don't want vicious, violent, and demented criminals, many of them deranged murderers, in our country. Make America great again. Now, I would just like to point out, show me the lie. Everything that he said there is absolutely 100% true. And so you have this particular judge, James Boasberg, I guess that's how you pronounce it. He is one of 4 judges currently with articles of impeachment either filed or about to get filed against them for attempting to block President Trump's orders. You have Representative Eli Crane now, who is heading up the articles of impeachment against Judge Paul Engelmeyer, who blocked the Trump administration from auditing the Treasury Department. You have Representative Ogles with Judge John Bates, who blocked the Trump administration from editing pages on government websites, and Representative Clyde, who is carrying the articles of impeachment against Judge John McConnell Jr., who blocked the Trump administration from reviewing the use of federal funds. Now, Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts actually came out and responded rather sharply to President Trump and the Republicans in Congress who are, of course, gathering up to introduce these articles of impeachment. He said, for more than 2 centuries, it has been established that impeachment is not an appropriate response to disagreement concerning a judicial decision. The normal appellate review process exists for that purpose. We do not have Obama judges or Trump judges, Bush judges or Clinton judges. I beg to differ, sir. What we have is an extraordinary group of dedicated judges doing their level best to do equal right to those appearing before them. Now, I don't profess to be an expert on the matter, but I do have a friend who is. I'd like to welcome Josh Hammer. He is the author of a book that is now out today, Israel and Civilization, The Fate of the Jewish Nation and Destiny of the West, also host of America on Trial. Josh, I want to talk to you. Before we go, I do want to talk to you about this book. But I want to first get your opinion on all of these articles of impeachment being introduced. I mean, I understand the knee-jerk reaction to say, well, I mean, we can't just have, Congress impeaching judges because they don't agree with the decision. But it's like, okay, but if you guys are outside of your lane, what the hell else are we supposed to do?
Sarah, great to join you as always. So I am a lawyer. I'm also senior counsel at a group called the Article 3 Project, and you can check us out at article3project.org. We actually have a grassroots activist webpage that is up there right now, encouraging people to call up their congressmen and senators to impeach Judge Boasberg. Sarah, I have been personally an outspoken proponent of judicial impeachment going back to my very earliest days in law school. It has always struck me as fairly obvious that judicial impeachment is one of the most underutilized tools in Congress's arsenal. Really going back to the origins of the republic there, I frankly think that far too few judges are impeached and should be impeached. I've publicly called for the impeachment of Sonia Sotomayor before. I mean, I'll call for the impeachment of Ketanji Brown Jackson too, because these people are not even purporting to interpret the text of the Constitution. Now, as it happens in this case, when it comes to Judge Boasberg, what he fundamentally has done is, to borrow the Hamiltonian phrase in Federalist 65, Hamilton wrote that the jurisdiction of impeachment in the U.S. Senate is defined as an abuse of the public trust. And that's what Judge Boasberg has done here in telling the President of the United States that you cannot deport Tren de Aragua murderers and rapists and gangbangers, the worst of the worst here. You know, the plenary power doctrine in immigration law is very clear. It's a well-established canon of American law. It says that Congress and the executive branch have plenary authority when it comes to immigration law in general. The president specifically has massive delegated authority from the Congress. That was the Trump versus Hawaii case back in 2018. This judge has no business whatsoever freaking ever getting involved here. I say two very large thumbs up for the Trump administration, and frankly, I hope that that's going to be a lot more to come in this respect.
What do you make of Chief Justice Roberts coming out and making this statement? I mean, I know that these Supreme Court justices, they try very hard to stay out of matters like this. They don't always give their opinions so freely. And you have Chief Justice Roberts coming out and, I mean, basically rebuking Trump, saying, oh, no, we can't be impeaching people. And when I hear him say that, I'm like, oh, yeah, you'd hate for that to start, because you'd hate for people to start talking about how there was allegedly a backroom deal made for the Obamacare decision that you turned over and sided with the Dems in exchange for something. I'm sure you would hate for us to talk about impeachment of judges, because then someone might target you. But obviously you are more of an expert on this matter. Was it strange to you that Chief Justice Roberts came out and commented on this?
It wasn't strange insofar as he has done this before. I think back to the first Trump administration from 2017 and 2021. At some point, Donald Trump made a comment, as we alluded to in your monologue, Sarah, about how there were Republican judges and Democrat judges, and Chief Justice Roberts came out there and said, oh, no, the president is wrong. We are all nonpartisan. So he's done this before, right? Yeah. And I'm therefore not surprised that he has shown his hand again. He clearly despises Donald Trump. I mean, he clearly personally abhors him. He views him as he likely accepts a lot of the MSNBC rhetoric, if I had to guess, about how Donald Trump is a world historical threat to the American constitutional order. He's literally just dead wrong in this case. He's criticizing the executive branch for having an opinion as to what the other branch, Article 1, the Congress, should do when it comes to impeachment. This is separation of powers at work. This is literally exactly what James Madison wrote in Federalist 51 in devising our separation of powers construct, that ambition must be made to counteract ambition, one of the most famous and articulate phrases in all the Federalist Papers there. And impeachment, as we were just discussing there a few minutes ago, impeachment is a fundamentally political decision. In American constitutional law, you don't have to commit a black letter crime in order to be eligible for impeachment. It's not a justiciable thing. It is a political prudential judgment. So he's not just a little out of line, Chief Justice Roberts. He is wildly out of line. And ironically, Sarah, the grand irony of all is that one might argue, if you wanted to be a little bit too clever by half perhaps, but I might do it anyway, that ironically, Chief Justice Roberts has actually himself committed an impeachable offense by choosing to opine in this very nature in what is clearly a political process way outside his legitimate jurisdiction.
I can so appreciate that. He's just so, you read these decisions now whenever the Supreme Court comes out with a decision, and it's like, I don't even know whether or not to say, I mean, I read whatever side the Chief Justice sides on, and I'm like, I feel like he's more of just, he sided with his own party whenever we say he sided with the Dems. It's like, well, he sided with his people. It seems like more and more whenever we have these decisions come down. So I did read, Josh, I want to get your opinion on this. I did read that this particular judge, Boasberg, his daughter, Catherine, currently works with a 501c3 called Partners for Justice that gives criminal, illegal aliens, and gang members legal advice. You'll notice she has her pronouns in that, which is just so cute. It's she, her, for anyone who's wondering, in case you couldn't tell. She's very clearly a female. So would that in and of itself, Josh, be enough to, again, I don't know how these things work, but I know that judges sometimes recuse themselves whenever there is a conflict of interest. Would his daughter having that position, which by the way, we hear about this all the time, Juan Merchan, his family members are also dabbling in leftist interests as well. And so you have all of this kind of cross-contamination of these people who are clearly leftist activists who now have, they have family members as judges who decide these very important decisions. So would that be in and of itself like a conflict of interest that he should have somehow stepped back from this case on?
So the Juan Merchan case is a clear, open and shut case when it comes to the fact that he should have recused himself for a very simple reason, which is that Juan Merchan himself literally donated $20 to the Biden-Harris campaign back in 2020 and earmarked his donation as saying, "Get Trump." So even holding aside his daughter, that dude had no business whatsoever being involved in adjudicating a case about Donald Trump, the guy who he literally donated against back in 2020. Now, Sarah, I get a little iffy when we talk about just because someone's relative did this or that, and I'll explain why. I get iffy because people have been saying this about Clarence Thomas and Ginny Thomas for over 3 decades. So Ginny Thomas is Clarence Thomas's wife. She is a very well-known conservative activist. She's a wonderful woman. I've met her any number of times now there. The left has been saying this for a very long time. Clarence Thomas should recuse himself because of his wife there. So I get a little iffy there. But having said that, at some point, you do cross the line. The basic dividing line that I can say, to the extent there is one, is when there is a direct monetary pecuniary interest, that clearly crosses the threshold. So Juan Merchan would be a good example there. In this particular case, maybe. I mean, if we can demonstrate that this judge's daughter would be directly benefiting in a monetary pecuniary sense due to his ruling there, okay, that's probably grounds for recusal. I'll give you another example. So when I clerked on the Fifth Circuit back in Dallas, Texas for Judge James C. Ho, hopefully future Justice James C. Ho, Judge Ho's wife, Allison Ho, is one of the most prolific litigators in the entire state of Texas. So if Judge Ho would be on a Fifth Circuit panel and Allison Ho, his wife, is a lawyer, he's obviously going to recuse himself. So there are some obviously clear-cut cases of recusal, but oftentimes it is kind of in this murky middle.
Yeah. Okay. Before we go, I do want to talk to you about your book. So it is out. It just came out today, correct?
Correct. Yep.
That's so exciting. So Israel and Civilization, the fate of the Jewish nation and the destiny of the West. So tell us about the book and why you decided to, I mean, it's obvious to me, but tell us why you decided to write it.
No, I appreciate it, Sarah. So look, the book is selling like wildfire. Praise God. It's very exciting. It was literally temporarily out of stock on Amazon this morning. It was the number 3 book on all of Amazon.com yesterday. Last I checked, it was like 7 or 8 or something like that. So, go ahead and purchase it. People are clearly interested in it.
Hurry up and purchase it before they run out again, is what Josh is saying.
Yeah, or Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. There's any number of other vendors as well, of course. But look, the book is very different than your standard quote-unquote pro-Israel book. I very deliberately chose a cover here that is not kind of a blue and white Star of David, because the book is fundamentally making a slightly different argument. It's making an argument, yes, that U.S.-Israel relations are important, and I have an entire chapter here making that case on explicitly MAGA, America First, realist foreign policy grounds, because you hear a lot of people say, oh, Israel, it's an old neocon Bush administration issue, and that's total nonsense. Donald Trump is a realist. He gets this issue. So I have a whole chapter on that. But really, more generally speaking, Sarah, the book is actually operating at a slightly more abstract level. I've been so appalled by what I've seen post-October 7th, this surge in anti-Semitism, this surge, frankly, in anti-Americanism. And I'm calling on Jews and Christians alike to basically fall in love with our biblical inheritance again. Let's actually go back and read scripture like the American founders did. Because unless we have a biblically fortified nation state and a biblically fortified Western civilization, we're never going to be able to actually ward off and ultimately defeat the very real enemies that seek to destroy us, which I identify as wokeism, Islamism, and global neoliberalism. So there's a lot packed in this book. There's a lot of content there. I think I did a decent job. I guess the readers will be the judge of that. But again, it's called Israel and Civilization, the fate of the Jewish nation and the destiny of the West. And
they can find that while it's still there on Amazon, also Barnes & Noble. And Josh, I am so very proud of all that you've done as your friend, but I just got to say you're kind of an overachiever, okay? Because you've got this book out, it's selling like hotcakes. You host America on Trial, you host the Josh Hammer Show, you're a syndicated columnist, you do work with the Article 3 Project. I can't even keep up with all of the titles that you have, and I'm just saying, you're making the rest of us look bad.
Yeah, the most important thing, of course, is that I became a father, I think, since we last chatted in December. So that's been the most important part of my life. But obviously, having a new book out is very exciting as well.
So make sure that you guys go pick up your copy at any of the previously mentioned websites. Josh, I always appreciate your expertise and commentary, and we'll talk soon.
Talk soon, Sarah. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, you guys make sure that hit the thumbs up button while you're sitting here listening to this amazing commentary by Josh Hammer. Always a pleasure having him on. Make sure that you are subscribed to our YouTube channel. For those of you who are not already watching on YouTube and are not already subscribed, you can find that at youtube.com/@Sara Gonzales Unfiltered is the channel. And share the show with a friend or on your social media. It would help us out in the algorithm here, which we all know is stacked against us as conservatives. So we got to take a break. We're going to be back with our panel. But first, we want to thank our sponsor this segment, MD Hearing Aid. Okay. MD Hearing, they make these very high quality rechargeable hearing aids. They've got exceptional sound quality. And I was shocked when I heard, I have a loved one who had been losing their hearing. And when I heard how much hearing aids cost, I was like, I'm sorry, what? I'd rather just go deaf. But what MD Hearing does is they've got this MD Hearing Neo model, and it costs over 90% less than clinic hearing aids. They're usually thousands of dollars. This actually fits all the way inside your ear. No one's going to know that it's there. They've got a Neo XS. It's the smallest hearing aid ever that they have developed. And you can get it $297. They've got a 45-day risk-free trial, 100% money-back guarantee. So listen, if you don't want to hear your wife nagging you, maybe it's not for you. If you'd like to hear again, which I highly suggest, you can go to shopmdhearing.com. Use promo code Sarah to get a pair of hearing aids for $297. Plus, they're adding a free extra charging case. That is a $100 value just for listeners of Sara Gonzales Unfiltered. That is shopmdhearing.com. Use promo code Sarah. Welcome back to the program. We have Matthew Marsden, Blaze TV contributor and actor and producer extraordinaire, along with Eric July, of course, Blaze TV contributor and founder of Rippaverse Comics, which you guys all need to check out. He's wearing his own merch.
Oh, yeah, wearing the
I love that.
I actually just grabbed this from the warehouse. So
I love it. I love it. And I was really looking forward to talking with you guys about the JFK files, which we were told were going to be released earlier today. As of the time of this taping, which we have a fairly quick turnaround, maybe they'll be dumped at the very end of the day, but as of the time of this taping, nothing. And it's frustrating to see now two different document dumps with the Epstein files and the JFK files be botched in such a manner. So we'll continue to keep an eye on that. Guys, feel free to give your opinion when we start talking about this, I guess. But what I'd like to talk about instead is the ceasefire deal that it appears that President Trump and President Vladimir Putin have made today. So they were on this 2-hour phone call, and after this phone call, they announced jointly that they have reached a 30-day ceasefire deal after this phone call. This headline says, as key detail in talks hint at new world order. So President Trump posted on Truth Social about the call. He said, my phone conversation today with President Putin of Russia was a very good and productive one. We agreed to an immediate ceasefire on all energy and infrastructure with an understanding that we will be working quickly to have a complete ceasefire and ultimately an end to this very horrible war between Russia and Ukraine. This war would have never started if I were president. Very true. Very true. I mean, you understand his reason for constantly saying that every single time he talks about it, because he's like, you guys, if you would have just done this right the first time. He says many elements of a contract for peace were discussed, including the fact that thousands of soldiers are being killed, and both President Putin and Zelensky would like to see it end. That process is now in full force and effect, and we will, hopefully, for the sake of humanity, get the job done. Now, they also, the White House said that the two agreed on that key detail that the Daily Mail headline was referring to was in support of Israel, that there should be a realignment in the Middle East and that Iran should never be in a position to destroy Israel. So they talked about United States and Russia relations, that they would like to strengthen those. And it's interesting because not that long ago, Matt, I remember you, I can't remember if Eric, if you were here at the table that day or not, but talking about how there's no reason why we shouldn't be strengthening relationships.
Oh, I was on that show. Yeah.
Okay. With a place like Russia. You don't have to be best buddies with a country in order to strengthen relations, whether it be trade or otherwise. There's no reason just because, Vladimir Putin, he did invade Ukraine. Was it my favorite decision that he's made? No, but we can't make enemies with everyone just because we don't like every decision that they made, even the ones that don't impact us. So, it's just interesting. You have President Trump on, how many days has he been in office? 60? And you're already seeing all of this progress made in such a short amount of time. There is no ultimate final ceasefire, but this is a step in the right direction as opposed to 4 years of, no, don't sign that. Don't sign that. The Biden administration. No, don't negotiate with Putin. Don't negotiate with Russia. We'll just keep funding you guys until what? I don't know. Until you take over Russia? That was never going to happen. And so now you see true leadership and strength in action with this 30-day ceasefire deal.
Yeah, I talked about it on one of the previous shows and how if he could pull it off, it was going to be interesting because I think I said that, look, Russia's a bit of a wild card. They don't necessarily have to listen to anybody just because they're telling them to cease fire, especially considering that they're the ones that invaded. They don't got to listen to anything.
In fact, right after President Trump negotiated the deal with Zelensky, Russia, I don't know if it were, I can't remember if it were bombs or whatever, but there was a very serious military operation that they engaged upon right after that.
Right after that happened, because I was like, look, they don't have to listen to any of this. What I believe is going to happen, and I don't think the Ukrainians necessarily want this to happen, and I especially know that the authoritarian left, at least on our side of the aisle, as far as America is concerned, don't want this to happen, is that Ukraine is going to have to concede some land. Okay, at the end of the day, that's what his whole thing hinged on. They're going to have to concede some land. And out of that, it looks like, at least for now, Zelensky is at least willing to entertain that. And maybe that had a lot to do with the previous administration basically saying, no, don't do that. Right. And keeping on what was going to inevitably be this perpetual war. Now it seems like at least they're going to come to the table. Now, I'll be clear, just so everybody knows that I am consistent on this. I do not like the idea of the United States of America basically negotiating on the Ukrainians' behalf in a war that doesn't involve them. But it technically does kind of involve them because of all the money that they've been given to this country, right? So you do have somewhat of an investment, whether it was Trump's fault, the previous administration before him, which a lot of this really got kicked off, especially in 2014 with the previous administration before that, and Obama and everything that they have been doing. Look, it's always been a corrupt country. And in America, to be fair to the Ukrainians out there, they've been heavily involved in that corruption, the United States of America, at least their government. So we'll see what happens for sure. But I am interested now to see if Zelensky is really going to play ball here and say, look, this land that was once ours is not going to be ours anymore.
Look, all throughout history, we're behaving like the invasion of a country is something that is so abhorrent. And it has happened all throughout history, whether you like it or not. People have seen land that they want and they've taken it through strength. It's just the way it is. And we've kind of see ourselves or think that we're above that. And what America does and what Britain's done in the past is used other ways of invading countries where it doesn't where it doesn't mean you walk in, you use proxies, like you say, that's what they do. The fact of the matter is that, as Eric points out, and nobody wants to talk about this, Ukraine was the most corrupt country in Europe by a country mile, right? By a country mile. We don't know. And again, I made this point today on my little YouTube show, is that we don't know why and what Putin was looking at from an intelligence standpoint, why he was getting in there. Now, the basic big thing is listen, NATO is pushing up against Russia, which is true, right? And they keep doing it. They kept doing it, right? And I'm going to tell you right now, and it hurts us because we like to think that we're the white hat guys, right? We're not the white hat guys. We kept encroaching towards Russia, which was wrong. I don't know what they were doing in Ukraine. There was suggestion that there was biological warfare, research going on over there. All these other kind of things. We don't know. What we do know is that the US has done a lot of stuff that it shouldn't have done, certainly over the past few years. And what Trump is doing is he's coming in and he's cleaning it up. He's actually really cleaning up. And I want to make this point as well, Sarah. I am from the UK, right? whatever anyone says, the UK doesn't see itself as a part of Europe, right? We can say that we are Europeans, but the UK does not see itself as a part of Europe. The way that Europe has behaved towards the United States is nothing short of hostile, right? And think about this. All Trump said was, I want a ceasefire. That's all he said. Yep. And by the way, he's going to get it, right? And they lost their minds. They're like, no, we can't have that. Let's send back the F-35s. This is how illogical they are, right? They're saying that we don't want to buy the F-35s anymore. The F-35s are the only fifth-generation fighters that the Europe has, right? So they're talking about going up against Russia without good enough planes to fight the Russians who have fifth-generation planes. The reason why I say that is why? Why are they doing this? I believe it's firmly linked to a couple of things. DOGE is the one thing. It's shown where all the flow of money is going, the transfer of wealth into Europe. Secondly, what Trump is doing is he's showing countries the way they should behave as sovereign countries. He's saying, look, you shouldn't have people invade you. You shouldn't have all these people here. You should look after your own people first. And that is exactly not what Europe wants, right? They do not want that. What they want is they want an influx of people to come in my opinion, so then they'll cause so much trouble that the governments will come in and say, I'm going to clamp down because the people will say, please, please, please save us, right?
Yeah.
So we're in a situation now where I look and I go, Europe is a bunch of globalists. Who is the one person that loves his country and does not want to be a part of the globalists?
Donald Trump.
And
Putin. I mean,
Vladimir Putin. I'm sorry. Whatever you think about him, he doesn't want to be a part of that.
Yep.
And I don't see why, when you've got Five Eyes and all the intelligence services in, the UK and all that worked against Donald Trump, right, in the past. You look at the Chris Steele dossier, all these other things. Why wouldn't you look to Russia and go, hey, listen, you were a superpower. I mean, with the USSR, you were a superpower. There's a lot of things that we can work on. We're aligned on a bunch of things. Like you said, if you're talking about us being friends, you don't have to be friends. You can just be trading partners.
Right.
But Europe is not, they're not our friends.
Right.
They're not. And I say that as someone from the UK.
Well, that's why it's just so messed up, because, I mean, when you look at the fact that we got involved in this in the first place, and you keep in mind that, Ukraine is not part of NATO. As much as they try to desperately, weasel their way in, they are not part of NATO. So there was no reason for us to pick an ally in this particular battle. We could have just as easily, I'm not saying we should have, I'm just saying we could have just as easily picked Russia, because Russia and Ukraine, on paper, neither of them are supposed to be our end-all, be-all allies, and we have to stick with them through thick and through thin. Every single thing that happens to them, we have to be right by their side. That's not even the case for either of them. So it was incomprehensible that we even decided to engage in this, other than the fact that this has been such a corrupt country laundering our money. Other than the fact, then, don't forget, every time we talk about Ukraine, that President Trump was impeached because he was trying to root out corruption of Joe Biden.
That was 100% confirmed.
Yep.
Yes.
It wasn't a lie.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, they impeached him over it, and all he was doing was saying, I heard that Joe Biden did some really shady stuff over here as vice president. It so happened that he was his political opponent at the time for president, but he did do those things as vice president. That is what was alleged that President Trump was trying to root out, and he got freaking impeached over it. Yeah. So I think that it's important to get, this is full context, full circle shit, that this all happened, and it never had to. This was not an ally of ours on paper. This was Joe Biden making my opinion, maybe not yours, Joe Biden making some backroom deal so that Zelensky didn't blow all his shit up by saying, hey, this is actually what I had on your boy. I'm going to expose this if you guys don't fund this conflict for us for forever.
And you know what he's like. I mean, we've seen the arrogance from Zelensky. He would totally do that.
Yes.
And by the way, who pardoned who? Just Joe Biden went back and he pardoned pretty much all his family. It's not, that wasn't just about the gun thing.
Here, what are you talking about?
No, nothing to see. I mean, the Burisma thing. And nobody talks about the Burisma deal. Not even though the guy actually who was in that deal came out and said, this is messed up. Look, you say we don't have a side. Why do we have to pick a side?
Sure.
That's got nothing to do with us. It's funny because Eric said the other day about being isolationist. I've become 100% isolationist. All I want to do is look after this country, look after what's going on here, right? And
If
then
it's not
we can-
advantageous for us, we shouldn't do it.
nothing. There's no reason for us to get involved in that.
I think that the base is finally starting to get warm to that because, like I said, I just remember so vividly, especially in 2012, 2008 as well, 2012. And this is not, hey, this is the time where Eric always invokes Ron Paul. This is not the point. The point I'm bringing up is that for a lot of what we're discussing here now, right, even some of the positions that Trump has at least somewhat espoused were positions that he was taking at the time, which he was basically saying we should not be involved in all of these various affairs. And they have these blowback effects that really just raises a generation of people to despise America abroad, right? He was obviously 100% factual, but they were calling him at the time isolationist because they would always say, even some, I mean, look, I've been here, I'm not going to name any names. I've been here round table discussing with people that are very much isolationist, they're interventionists, and they really like that. But I think that's been I would argue that that's one of the biggest divides that we've seen. It's one that's been necessary to have, I would argue. That's one of the biggest divides that we've seen. And it really does show a shift in like modern conservatism now that people are more willing to say, look, maybe we shouldn't be involved in everybody's affairs.
Well, the other thing is we've caused a lot of this.
Yep.
Ukraine,
so that's why we like
everybody. Ukraine 2014. Just Google it, and I'll give you all the information that you need as far as why we're in the position we're in.
Eric, Libya,
Syria.
Syria. Like all this is our fault. And I think that what we're doing is fair-minded people, Sarah, now are going, hang on a second, it's okay for us to say that we were wrong in that because we didn't vote for that, right? And now we want to rectify it and get back to basics. So I'm all for it.
Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and take a quick break. And then when we come back, I want to talk about some breaking news this afternoon. I was just talking to my friend Josh Hammer about these activist judges going way outside their scope. We've got more of that. We'll get into after we thank our sponsor, Birch Gold. So Birch Gold, listen, gold just hit all-time highs the first part of 2025. And if you're thinking about diversifying into gold and silver, now is the time. And the company that I trust to help you diversify into physical gold is Birch Gold Group. They have helped my family. We did a deal with them last year to help us diversify into gold and silver. Again, like I understand President Trump is getting things back on track. And obviously I fully support him doing that. But gold is just a really, really good hedge against instability, against, the inflation that we saw under Joe Biden. And it's just something that's really great to have in your folder. So if you've got an existing IRA or 401k, let's say, you've got one lying around collecting dust, you can actually convert that into a tax sheltered IRA in physical gold, and it's not going to cost you a penny out of pocket. You can do that with Birch Gold. Just do yourself a favor. Text my name, Sarah, to 989898. All they're going to do is send you a free information kit on gold. It's just information. There's no obligation, so there's no reason not to do it. That is Sarah, S-A-R-A, to 989898. Well, more breaking news. We were just talking about this activist judge that's like, no, I want Venezuelan gangs here on American soil murdering innocent Americans. Now you have another United States federal judge, Obama appointed, who has ordered the Trump administration and Elon Musk to stop dismantling USAID. He says the effort to shut it down likely violated the Constitution. This is Maryland District Judge Theodore Chang, who granted a preliminary injunction on today to stop the administration from closing the agency. He said the court finds that the defendant's actions taken to shut down USAID on an accelerated basis, including its apparent decision to permanently close USAID headquarters without the approval of a duly appointed USAID officer, likely violated the United States Constitution in multiple ways. And then he went on to say, the actions not only harm the plaintiffs, but also the public interest because they deprive the public's elected representatives in Congress of their congressional authority to decide whether, when, and how to close down the agency created by Congress. This is just so crazy to me, the lengths that these Obama-appointed judges, in most cases they are Obama-appointed, will go to try to prevent President Trump and Elon, who they call the first buddy, which I think is so cute, from literally helping the American taxpayers. I would say that's 100% in the public interest, and they don't want it to happen. It's crazy to me. So now you have another roadblock.
No, but we know this, right? We know, and this is part of the problem. And we've said this on this show multiple times about the way the left is very, very smart tactically about the way they go about things. You know, Obama, you know, actually Trump did it in his last presidency, his last administration with federal judges. He put a lot of federal judges in, which was very, very smart, right? Thank goodness for that. And then we got the Supreme Court.
Because Obama left a bunch of openings, if I recall correctly, before Trump came in.
Yeah, and I don't know why that was, but what the left has done successfully is they've taken over the schools. We know this. They've taken over entertainment. We know this, even though we keep trying to tell people you have to invest in the culture. It's very, very important. And so this is why, and they've done it with Soros appointed judges, and there's a reason for that. And now they're completely weaponized. You see, this is just an example of what they're doing on a bigger scale. Like, what you're not seeing is all the other stuff that they're doing where it's not publicized, where they're letting people go. They're saying, no, we don't need to prosecute this, we don't need to prosecute that. And what I would like to ask them, if they're talking about something that is constitutional, can they please tell me how Joe Biden can pardon someone who hasn't been accused of a crime?
Great question. I don't think they'd have an answer for you.
Well, of course they won't. But what they're doing now, which is really great, and this is why we have to cement JD Vance in for the next 4 years, is that they are showing you who to get rid of. It's as simple as that. Like, I want more of them to come out with it. I want more of them to be more activists and be vocal about it. And they need to be fired, replaced, or whatever it takes to get them out. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. Now, I want to throw in here to this conversation, and Eric, I'm sure you will have something to say about this. Within this conversation, you have Chuck Schumer, Senator Chuck Schumer, who was on one of these, mainstream media shows, and he actually said Americans are greedy because they want to keep more of their money, I guess. Watch.
And you know what their attitude is? I made my money all by myself. How dare your government take my money from me? I don't want to pay taxes. Or I built my company with my bare hands. How dare your government tell me how I should treat my customers, the land and water that I own, or my employees. They hate government. Government's a barrier to people. A barrier to stop them from doing things. They want to destroy it. Yes. We are not letting them do it, and we're united.
We are united. I'm not united with that. Read our founding documents, bro. That is not what this is supposed to be. The audacity of these people to act like this is just another, you didn't build that. Yep. You didn't build that. The audacity of these people to actually tell Americans they are greedy for not wanting to pay the federal government their hard-earned money, which it is, by the way, Chucky, it is their hard-earned money, to pay their hard-earned money to you to send it to Peru to fund drag shows is insane to me.
Man, look, I'm so glad that more people are becoming less fond of government, because this is how they feel about you. Well, I appreciate Chuck Schumer coming out there, or whether he's on The View, and he's discussing this in the manner that he is. He's really just, saying the quiet part out loud, and that they act as if you are supposed to be submissive to them and whatever it is that they want. Okay. So your dollar that you earn isn't really your dollar. It's theirs. Right. And they try to shame you into wanting to keep what you have earned. Right. And this is, as I always call it, especially Congress, when you look at all the stuff that they vote for and have voted for in the past, it's a criminal organization. I don't know what else what other way to describe them, because they are actively selling off assets of the current generation and future generation and selling you into more and more debt. They keep even that money, right? The people that are trying to save their money, that money is getting actively devalued because of idiots like him and their spending efforts, right? So I support any type of cut. That's the easiest one to identify. Why are we sending X amount of dollars to not even X amount, it's quite literally billions. It's a lot of zeros billions of dollars to these other countries for stuff that the American people do not benefit from at all. And it's like they want to continue to tax you more. They want to continue to regulate more. They want to make it as difficult as possible for you to be able to live a normal life for yourself and your family. These are people that are enemies of the people, right? And they're getting so arrogant because one freaking organization, or rather, whatever you want to call USAID, right? Whatever you want to call it, it shouldn't exist. It should have never been a thing.
Did you call it USAID?
USAID, yeah, that's what I call them. USAID, right? But yes, when you consider all the gay shit they was funding, it suits it perfectly, right? But USAID, seriously, it shouldn't be a thing. Why is this a thing, right? And they're so angry they want to prevent it from shutting down. But it also shows the dangers of giving that, letting that government, giving them just the inch, because you see just how difficult it becomes to get rid of it. Once they get that stuff implemented, remember the Patriot Act was supposed to be so permanent, right? And here it just keeps going year after year, decades even. It'll continue to go. It's so very difficult to get rid of that stuff. There's no such thing as a temporary government agency or anything like that.
No, well, let me ask you a question. Let's see. Stephen, are you there? Can I invoke the great Stephen?
Of course.
Are you there, Stephen?
Yes.
All right. How much money does Chuck Schumer make a year from the American people? Is it $198,000, something like that?
I think it's 100. Well, do they get extra if they're in leadership? Because I think it's 175 for Congress.
I know that it was lower for.
Yeah.
Okay,
Here.
how long is it? This is just an experiment, live experiment, right? How much do they earn, and how long has he been in Congress?
Well, he's been there an eternity.
Yeah, he has, for sure.
How much is it?
Let's see. How much money do U.S. senators make? It says, it's 174.
Okay, so let's say he's been in Congress for 20 years. Would that be a fair thing? How long has he been in?
Oh my gosh, you're making me do my digging.
No, I'm
since 1999. Since 1999. Thank you, Stephen.
Okay, so that's going how many years? 26 years times by $149,000.
I'm not doing that.
Okay, but all right, do this. How much?
No.
What is
that's what I was
Chuck
going to look
Schumer's
up.
Net worth.
Net worth is estimated. Let's see. No way. There's some random website that says.
Don't look at those.
Yeah. 75 million.
That's insane. If that's
hang on a minute. Hang on a minute, because
Business
I wasn't
Insider.
very good at math at school.
Business Insider says 75 million. So
Hang
you
on.
got 174,000
crazy
times 26 years. That's 4 million, and that's if you don't spend any of that money on anything. That's if you're not paying to live.
You're living in DC. You've got two houses, right? Because you got to be in DC. You got to be in New York as well as a senator from New York, right? I get that. I'm just going to say this now. I'm going to curse, so cover your ears. Who the is this guy to tell us about spending and keeping our money and that we didn't build it when he has literally built absolutely and only taken from us? Like this whole thing is the same thing with Nancy Pelosi, who has massively outperformed the stock market. And by the way, I'm not going to say who it is, but also there are conservative congressmen.
Dan Crenshaw.
Not saying who it
Patch
is.
McCain.
Not saying who it is.
I am.
Okay, and they massively outperform the stock market. I'm sick of it.
Yeah.
I'm sick of it. And the people, I'm pissed off that Chuck Schumer is telling you that you, who started your own company from nothing, right, built on a grassroots movement, that you didn't build it, and this is worth $75 million when he's only earned $4 million is beyond me. And by the way, he's earned $4 million from us.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly right.
Sorry, rant over. It's just, I came to America because this was the land of opportunity, right? That's why I came here, because I watched Rocky, and Rocky told me that if I worked hard enough, that I could be the world champion, or if I worked hard enough, that I could get somewhere. And these people are killing the American dream, and they're shipping all the money out, all while they get rich. Them all.
You said ran over. Is your ran actually over?
Yeah, it's over.
Okay. All right. We got to go to break. We'll be right back. You guys are going to love this. A hospital in New Jersey is now asking parents how their newborn children identify. What is their sexual orientation? This is Inspira Health Network. They gave parents a questionnaire to fill out, which included the sexual orientation of their tiny newborn. Question 1, what sex was your baby assigned at birth? Question 2, do you identify your baby as female, male, trans male, gender queer, or an additional option? I'm not kidding you. Question 3, you're going to love this one. Which of the following best describes your baby? Lesbian or gay, straight or heterosexual, bisexual, or self-describes, or questioning and unsure. Yes, I'm very sure that the little tiny newborn that poops their pants and can't hardly hold their head up really has a preference on who they would like to have sex with when they grow up in the future. Like, this is totally insane. I can't believe this is a health network, a network of hospitals that is asking parents how their tiny newborns, their infants, identify. You can't even make it up. You can't even make it up.
Like, again, if COVID showed anybody anything, it's that just how much just compromise the entire medical community.
I literally would just walk out of that hospital.
Well, nobody should take their child to that hospital.
No, I would just walk out.
Here's another thing. If you sign on there anything other than off, what are you talking about? Then you are a groomer.
Yeah.
How could you ever fill out that form?
Talk about that.
How could you do that?
Without being a weird There's no way you could talk about it without being weird.
Wait, look, what sex was your baby assigned at birth?
Yeah, you have to be a weird son of a bitch off rip and onto some shit.
No, it is. You look and you go, that if you say anything other than this is absurd, or as I said, go, I'm not going to do it. I've sworn. I've used my swearing up for I've been good over the past few, but look.
Sorry, edit.
Sorry.
Love you.
They love it. They're like, beep, beep, beep. It sounds like Morse code when we're on a go, beep, 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 beep. But look, this is the ultimate. We always knew that they were going for the kids. This is, call it what it is. It is utter evil. It's not like an administrative thing. Again, I say this about movies. I'm going to go on again, Sarah. I say this about movies, right? How many levels does it have to go up from the bottom? Somebody think up this bullshit and it has to go right the way up to the top. And then someone has to say, yeah, you know what? That's a good idea. I'll implement that because that's real science, right? And you're going to trust the people who are doing this to give your kids vaccines. You're going to trust them to look after your kids. I'm out. I'm done. Things like this are the reason why you need to pick up sticks and leave the state. Leave the state.
Do you know my favorite part about this before we have to go? I totally agree with you. The question number 2 says, do you identify your baby as? And isn't that what this is all about? These are mentally ill parents who are forcing this lifestyle onto their young children who have no idea what's going on. So I'm glad at least that this health network